Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Abijith, and I work on event-driven systems at IBM Software Labs. Before we begin, I would like to admit something. In my days as an software developer earlier, I once accidentally logged the API key until the security scanners flagged it. And of course, it got escalated. You, as an engineer, could actually think what impact it could have brought if the code actually went into the production systems. So, today, in the following slides, I'm going to talk about what are the problems in details, what is the current solution that we have, and what are the limitations of the current solution, and how we can design a better approach. Okay. Imagine this. You are a developer in a Kafka based system and you are debugging the system. When something goes wrong, what is the first thing that you are going to do? We are all going to add a log statement, right? A simple log.info. But wait, after some time, this log file gets shipped into a centralized storage system like Elasticsearch or Splunk. And deep inside the log, there could be a user password. And the worst part is, like, it is now in the plain text, it's indexed and it's searchable. And it could remain there for months. Typically, in a event-driven system, the data is not just confined to a single service. We have the producers, the consumers, the monitoring tools, and the data analytics systems. And each one might log this message, which amplifies the risk. So let's see just why it matters. It really matters because it is not a technical problem, but it's an information leakage. And like I just mentioned in my earlier screen, like once the sensitive information gets leaked, it would remain there for months, and it is not very easy to remove those sensitive information from the system. And secondly, it could lead to security nightmares. And guess what? A simple log line added by a developer could result in financial and it could result in financial as well as the reputation loss for an organization. So how do we currently address this problem? Most teams handle it by manually writing logic in code, specifying which fields are to be redacted. Now, just to get a context, we'll just see what is meant by redaction. In simple terms, it is a process of hiding or removing sensitive information from the data. Things like email, phone numbers, IP addresses, credit card details, etc. And why do we do this? We do this to protect the user privacy and to stay compliant with regulations like GDPR. Okay, now let's come back to the current way of handling the system. And now let's look at some common issues that we face with manually hard coding redaction logic. First problem could be missing redaction. Some services may entirely lack redacting sensitive data in their services, as there is nothing that asks them to do so. Second, what I called is inconsistent production. It is like when there are many services, one service may redact some information which it deems to be sensitive. For example, there can be a producer service, there can be a consumer service. The producer service may think like an API token is a sensitive information, and then it may redact that. But some other service may not think that as a sensitive information and leave it like that, and then the data leakage happens. And third thing, and the most important, whenever there is a extra field added to that event, so in that case, all the services which work with this event has to update its redaction logic in those services. which is really uh, developers might forget that thing, and it is really not perfectly a happening thing. So I just started thinking what could serve as a single source of truth for sensitive fields. Where could we define it once and every service will just follow it automatically? And then it hit me like we have something that describes the structure of a data, our schemas. If schemas can define types of the data, the name of the data, the types of the data, other constraints, we can, is there a possibility that we can also define what fields are sensitive, just like we define what fields are mandatory in a schema. So if you have worked with RESTful APIs, Open API spec is the standard. Similarly, for event-driven systems, we have AsyncAPI. Systems like Kafka, RabbitMQ, etc. Here is the thing. AsyncAPI allows us to add extra metadata to each field via vendor extensions. By vendor extensions, what I mean is this: after X hyphen, and we can put some name, and this is what I called a vendor extension. And this is what I meant by contract in the schema system. Okay, before we jump into the demo, I would quickly like to walk you through the setup. I have a consumer service and I have a Kafka consumer that takes a custom deserializer. This is where it is the custom deserializer is the place where we have all the redaction logic. In the config so as you know, custom deserializer extends the deserializer given by the Kafka. So it has two methods, configure, which is executed at the time when we are configuring the Kafka consumer, and the deserialize method is when the messages comes in, and each method is intercepted by that deserialize method, and so on. So in the configure method, we have a redaction service. Our redaction service, which uses an AsyncAPI parser. We have a redaction service which uses a AsyncAPI parser, and that AsyncAPI parser loads an AsyncAPI spec, and it configures itself. It parses the spec, it configures itself, it via a vendor extension, it understands what are the fields that has to be redacted, and it keeps an in-memory storage of all the fields and how it should be redacted. So when a message arrives, the deserialize method would just send that data to the redaction service, which then applies those rules on the data based on the fields, and returns a clean redacted payload back to the Kafka consumer. So in this way, the deserializer becomes a schema-driven and a privacy-aware system instead of depending upon hard-coded logic. I will just go through the demo now. So first, I would like to show you. So currently in my demo setup, I have a Kafka up and running. In the Kafka, there is a broker, and there is one topic called user registration. And here is my AsyncAPI spec that contains the schema details of user registration and the types, the fields and the types. And I have also marked some of the fields which we consider as sensitive information with the vendor extension, that is x-acme-redact equal to true. So whatever fields we think is a sensitive information. We are marking those fields with this vendor extension. And next, I would like to just show you uh, the deserializer. So this deserializer actually implements the deserializer coming from the Kafka consumer. So here is the configure method, and here we have a redaction service that we are instantiating, and this redaction service in this redaction service we are passing the path to the async API spec, and in this redaction service we have a API async API parser that takes the spec and then it configures itself. And also once the deserialization occurs, I am just logging whatever I get as an output. So here is a Kafka producer. I'm just producing an event into the Kafka topic. As you can see, we have, this is the event that we are going to pass, and we have full name, phone number, which is a sensitive information, and what we have marked as with the vendor extension, the IP address, etc. So let me just I'm now sending the message, and if I see that from the deserializer all the redaction logic has completed, this is schema driven redaction. So and it is sent back to the Kafka consumer, and we are logging that. So this is the thing that I wanted to show. So what is the advantage with this schema driven redaction? The advantage is, the first advantage is the visibility. Now every stakeholder in every service correctly knows what field they have to redact, which is there in our async API spec. And second is governance. That means the async API spec remains as a single source of truth. So the as it is enforced, governance becomes easy. And evolution. If there is a change and if a new field is added to that event, in that case we don't have to even touch our consumer or any of our service, because now it is a schema driven redaction. So whatever field is added and whatever is marked with the vendor extension, it gets automatically redacted. And for the compliance, we are now compliant with all the regulations such as GDPR. So some of the key takeaways: redaction is broken today. We are hard coding. The way we are handling is by hard coding the fields and manually redacting them. Privacy belongs to the schema, and async API makes it enforceable, a contract, a responsibility, not a nice to have feature. So I would just like to mention how IBM solves this. Among our event automation solution, one of our product, event endpoint management, offers powerful redaction capabilities. This feature allows you to control what data from your Kafka topics can be viewed by your subscribers, hiding sensitive information as configured. The redaction feature in event endpoint management supports Avro and JSON schemas, as well as schemaless JSON formatted messages, giving you flexibility while maintaining strong data protection rules. So if you would like to explore more about this solution further, you can just request for a personalized live demo through below the, below links. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Questions?
So those third-party integrations you are talking, right? Third-party integrations.
I'm not able to hear you.
Those third-party integrations, right? It's not working. I think. A third-party integration or vendor.
Third party integration.
X data.
Yeah, this one, the last, yeah,
So
that is, we have a product in our IBM, so that has this redaction capability. So that is what I was mentioning.
So what are other properties are available apart from the X redact
What are other possibilities?
properties
Properties of,
that X data X redact something you
so
told, right?
it is like that is a vendor extension. You can either you can mark it as x-redact or anything, but a whole everyone should have a understanding of what that is. If all of them have that understanding of what that vendor extension it is, then uh, the redaction becomes like whatever you can use it for different purposes.
Any other properties are there
um, I'm
apart from the X redact?
apart from vendor extension, I'm not fully sure about any other properties are there.
Yeah. Hi. Is there any like list, like it will list all the kind of like critical high and that's kind of sensitive data, or like all it will list all together? So that we need to, I mean, you told us that we have to do the vendor, we have to, I mean, encode it or mask it. So that is like it will list all these all together, or this is like category. Okay, this is the high severity and this is the medium one in that way.
No, so once we have, in case of sensitive information, it is like once we have marked something as sensitive, that means it is not like it is highly sensitive or it has low sensitivity. It is simply like this is an personal info PII data, and this should be treated like it is a personal information of an user. So this should not be going into the logs, or this should not be printed anywhere, or
Yeah, thanks for that. And one more question. So this will be applicable only for the IBM tools only, or like
no, no,
others
no, no, no.
also?
I just mentioned IBM tools also has these capabilities, but
Okay.
any Kafka consumer, in my demo I showed you a Kafka consumer, Apache Kafka consumer, and it configure itself with a what you say, a deserializer, a custom deserializer which extends the deserializer, Kafka deserializer. So that is generic. So all the solution can use that generic solution. I was just mentioning we also have a product in our
Got it. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Anyone else with a question?
For the vendor extension that you are mentioning, is it something that you are mentioning all manually, or is there a tool that also helps that to automate that?
here I have manually added that whatever fields we think as a, but I'm not fully sure of whether there is a tool or how it can be generated. The AsyncAPI document can be generated in such a way
Because in
that
your flow there was in between something for updating the redact, so I thought there is something automation around that. It's all manual at that point.
can you?
So there was 3 steps that you were showing.
Yep.
Creating your specification async API, then you have redaction something.
A redaction service is
It's
what
okay.
we have I have built. So we can have any service, or we can directly do everything in the deserialized method itself. But just for maintainability and clean coding, I just had this redaction
Okay,
service.
okay.
Any last questions?
Is this extensible for open APIs also?
Open API, in the world of REST APIs, Open API is the spec.
Yes.
So here, for event-driven systems, we have this async API. So I could not
No,
clearly.
I'm just asking if the same solution can be extended for
I'm not
REST
sure about
APIs
whether there is
because
any vendor extension.
it's a
There is, yeah,
spec-driven
there is.
solution, right? So we do have open API specs.
Okay.
So the same can be applied and
Yeah,
redacted.
yeah.
So currently it does not support, does it? It needs to be extended.
He mentioned there is vendor extensions for OpenAPI spec as well. So in that case,
Okay. And
it is possible.
so can this be integrated with the live traffic? Say, for example,
Yep.
you have the spec. So at the gateway level, if I feed this information that this is a sensitive data, and when the live traffic comes,
Yep.
and the gateway identifies that as per the spec, this has to be redacted,
Yes,
and
definitely,
it goes
definitely
through.
it is
So
possible.
when doing so, for the live traffic, does it introduce any latency?
Does it introduce any?
Any latency? Will there be any performance
Okay.
impact?
So the thing is, like, here inside the redaction service, we are using an in-memory map. So there is a latency. There will be a latency, but that would be minimal. And the trade-off is like, if we see
Okay.
what happens while while the information gets leaks to a small latency in redacting those things.
Okay.
It is
Got it.
we feel that trade-off is more for like to redact those
Okay.
fields.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Abijith. Please give him a round of applause.